I'm Dr. Kasey Holland, the host of our show. The Made to Heal show dives deep into the hidden obstacles that keep people sick, stuck, and searching for answers. From chronic infections and viral reactivations to environmental toxins, burnout, emotional stress, and nervous system dysregulation, we explore the complex roots of illness that conventional medicine often overlooks. Through honest conversations, patient stories, and interviews with leading experts in functional and integrative medicine, you'll learn what it really takes to recover your energy, clarity, and vitality. This isn't another surface level health podcast. It's a journey into the real mechanisms of healing, empowerment, and transformation. Because you weren't made to just struggle, you were made to heal and thrive. Welcome to this episode of the Made to Heal show. Today, I'm honored to have Dr. Paul Savage with us. Dr. Paul Savage is the founder and chief medical officer of MD Lifespan. He is a leader in personalized medicine and toxin reduction through breakthrough innovations like the advanced serial therapeutic plasma exchange protocols. He empowers patients to take control of their health, promoting longevity and wellness. A former ER physician who transformed his own health, Dr. Savage is dedicated to revolutionizing healthcare by addressing the global toxin crisis with cutting-edge science and patient-centered care. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Savage. I am really looking forward to this conversation, and it is such an important one.
Yeah, the story kind of goes back to undergraduate when I did mathematics and biology. So I ended up becoming a biophysicist. I knew I was going to go into medicine, but I was always, my mind is very analytical, mathematical trained, and I like data. So I did that at Michigan State University, but then I got my medical school training at University of Michigan, and I did my ER training in Detroit, and I was a trauma doc for about 10 years. So in the emergency room, you get to see a lot of everything, and it's a lot of excitement. But after the course of 10 years, I started at 150 pounds. And by the time I was 10 years down the road, I was 170 pounds and I was not in good health. And I was 38 at that point, and I already had significant heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, trouble sleeping, anxiety. It was just not a really good situation. My personal doctor was putting me on my seventh pill for all these different symptoms I had. But he did look at me one day. He goes, as I said, do I need to take this pill? And he goes, no, what you really need to do is get healthy. Why don't you go try that for a change? Because I never really had. I just never was. I was the kid who studied a lot. I wasn't the kid who did a lot of sports and ate well. And it finally caught up with me. That's kind of where my life changed, because I started realizing that there was a lot out there in the world of health and wellness, including not just nutrition and exercise, but including learning about stress and sleep and toxins and how to detox, and this whole area of medicine that as traditional doctors, we weren't trained about. And I really found a lot of salvation there for me because I found out about hormone therapy. This was back in the 90s before it got popular. I was one of the doctors that set up the first 70 clinics that dealt with natural hormone therapy for men and for women between 2000 and about 2010 when I left the company. And so I was really getting into the health and wellness because, I mean, I was overweight. I have some pictures I could show. I looked like I was 70, and now I'm 65, but it looks like the pictures are reversed. So I really had a big interest in my own health and my own wellness. And with all these clinics I started realizing a lot of people are out there as well asking the same questions about how do you stay healthy? And it does have a lot to do about prevention. It's not just the things that you can do, but how can you test various systems to make sure that they're staying as optimum as possible. And, as a mathematician, I want all the tools at my disposal. I'm not opposed to medication in certain patients for certain reasons, but there's just so many other things out there that need to be utilized because it's for the breakdown of the root cause of what's starting everything. And that's kind of where it's always been. So I had a very successful career. I built a lot of clinics. I built the software. I dealt with a lot of chronically ill patients. But the problem was by 2022, the amount of toxins that I'd been watching in people elevate. Now, this isn't just research. This is my patient base for 30 years in the past that I've been able to watch these levels of toxins increasing in these patients year after year after year, and inflammation and chronic inflammation that follows it, I was convinced without a doubt that when people ask what's the cause of chronic inflammation, and you hear diet, lifestyle, and toxins, I was like, no, it's the toxins. But I'd always known that. The problem in 2022 is by that time, and COVID had happened a couple of years before, and COVID is a toxin. It's just a live toxin versus the chemical toxins, which aren't alive. The body acts the same way. But I was realizing at that point that there was too many toxins and too many people, and what we had in the way of removing those toxins weren't effective anymore. So I retired, because if I couldn't look a patient in the eye and say, I think I can get you better, then medicine didn't have the attractiveness that it had before, that I had the enjoyment I found in this area of health and wellness. But as it has been, the universe had a different plan. And about a month later, I was reading an article about plasma exchange, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and the effect that it had on these markers of aging. And
over just the last 7 years, I can say the same thing where, hey, people used to get better after I did these things and now they're not. And as a doctor, you just feel like, what is going on? So when I learned about this, it was so exciting and hopeful. So yeah, let's talk about the plasma exchange and also a little bit about, what toxins it can handle, because it can
yeah,
improve all kinds of toxins, which when I tell patients about it, I'm like, this is the toxin that is really high in you and probably making you really sick. But with this therapy, we can also get all of these.
one of the important things to realize on any toxin test, and they're all valid, it's just you have to understand what they're testing, how they're testing, and what you can interpret from that data. So we use a urine test on patients that has over 109 different types of toxins in 12 different categories, because there's a lot of different toxins in the universe. There's forever chemicals, there's pesticides, there's herbicides, there's phenols, there's heavy metals, there's mycotoxins, there's PFAS, there's PCBs. I mean, the list is a lot of different categories. But one of the things I think people aren't aware of is it's estimated by the Environmental Working Group there's somewhere between 80 and 200,000 different toxins in the environment in the United States. It makes the United States one of the more toxic countries in the world. The Environmental Working Group also estimates that we're putting in 100 million tons of toxins every year. So this is not what happened back in the 60s or the 70s. This has been escalating for the last 50 and 60 years. And in 2016, it was Stephen Hawking, this probably arguably the smartest man that ever lived, who said pollution and our stupidity to it is an existential threat to mankind. And I agree with him, because my history of 30 years, I've watched these levels increase. So when we do this test of 100 toxins in the urine for patients, I just want to remind them that this is only 1/1000th of all the toxins that are in the environment that I'm testing. So I don't really need to go into this toxin or that toxin, because there's probably 90,000 other ones that they have as well. What I'm really looking for is how much toxins you have compared to the next person. Are your symptoms possibly related to the toxins? And of the toxins you have, not all the toxins are created equal. There's some toxins that are much worse for the body than others, as you were mentioning. And so when we, talk about that, and having experience in this field for a number of years, in my opinion, it's really about the plastics, because they've become a horrible contributor to disease. The pesticides and herbicides, because if they kill insects and plants, they kill you just as well. The PFAS, which is the chemicals that we've developed to be anti-grease, which we knew back in the 80s caused cancer at a high rate of speed, and mold. I believe the reason that mold toxicity is even more of a problem today than 100 years ago is because we no longer live in stone houses. We now live in wet boxes of wood, and we no longer eat grain right out of the field. All of our grain is stored in silos. it gets moldy. We spray it with a toxin to get rid of the toxins, but it still has the other toxins. And then we're grinding it up and feeding it to people. It's not fresh. So there's just a lot of different reasons. There's not a source of water in the United States that doesn't have toxins in it. That came out in a report within the last 6 months. So, and you're talking about health, the 5 basic pillars of health are exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and detox. This is probably the one that's markedly gotten worse in the last 40 years. And it's the one that we have to look at on every patient, because when this goes bad, all the rest of the stuff doesn't work. So starting from that point, I always tell patients, we're going to be talking about plasma exchange, which is a very effective way of getting every single toxin that we tested out. It's not a matter of if we can get your toxin levels down. It's just a matter of how many plasma exchanges do you need to get the level down far enough that your body can resume its normal function. That's really what we're talking about here. But that doesn't mean all the other ways that we use to avoid toxins and we get toxins so useful, because most people, what they need to do is learn how to minimize their exposure in their daily life. The problem with that issue is it sounds overwhelming because toxins are everywhere. They're in everything you have and everything you do, which is true. But you can reduce your exposure in some easy stepwise fashion, but filtering your water and learning how to filter your air, how to manage your humidity, how to buy your food, how to store your food, how to pick the right beauty products, how to pick the right cleaning products. These are all doable things. And the most exciting thing that we've seen in the last 3 years is all of the patients that completed our protocol 5 years ago actually have lower toxin levels today. They've had subsequently lower levels every year for the past 3 years.
When there's toxins and the body's oxidative stress levels increase, then we have opportunistic viral infections and these bugs that the body can't handle. And all of a sudden, it looks like just this pool of everything going wrong. And that's the point for people like that, where, yes, we still encourage, filtering water, reducing toxin load, but the body might need help like TPE. And then you can maintain that, which is awesome. It's not like you're going to need TPE every year for the rest of your life to deal with the toxins.
Which is kind of interesting because, again, plasma exchange has been around for 50 years. For those listeners who aren't aware, plasma exchange is a medical device. It's kind of like a plasma donation machine. They put an IV in a patient, the blood comes out, it goes into the machine. We add a little anticoagulant called citrate. It's a natural anticoagulant that binds up the calcium, and when you don't have any calcium in the blood, you can't make clots. You can't make blood clots. And that allows the blood to transverse through the machine. The machine centrifuges, spins the blood, and separates the liquid part, which is the plasma, from the solid part, which is the things like your red cells, your platelets, and your white cells. Now, what people don't realize about the plasma is the conduit. It carries everything in the body to every other part of the body. It's like your superhighway. So it has nutrients and hormones and medications, clotting proteins, antibodies, but it also has toxins, inflammatory markers, cytokines, cancer, and all these other things. It carries everything. So when you have these two parts of your blood separated, you can actually throw the plasma away because it carries everything, including all the toxins, and you can replace that plasma. In typical use, we use what's called 5% albumin, which is a protein that we get from plasma donors that's been highly purified, and we introduce the cells back into the body. This takes about 2 hours, but what it does is it removes all the toxins that have been in the plasma, and then we wait a month while the tissues release more toxins back into the plasma before we do another round. It's kind of like an oil change for the human. It's just a way of taking out the bad oil. First, at MD Lifespan, we made a commitment to use the best products available. So our product only comes from Griswold, which is a United States-based lab that takes plasma from plasma donors, and they've been around for a very long time, supplying albumin for all the medical community in the United States and most of the world. So we have a lot of experience and we have a lot of information and data regarding albumin. So when they take albumin out of the plasma, what they're doing is just putting a plasma through what's called electrophoresis so that the albumin protein particle comes in one side of the container, and you can actually harvest the albumin straight out of that container. And then they put it through a very rigorous cleaning program to make sure that there's not particles, viruses, toxins, cancer, and they're cleaning that whole thing up. And then they put it into a liquid and then package it in a bottle so that doctors like us can use albumin for a lot of different reasons. When I was in the ER, I used albumin all the time for many different things. And what we discovered about albumin, especially the high quality albumin like Griswold makes, is that it's highly purified. It's tested extensively by the government. And I don't think patients really need to be too worried about transmission, because in the last 50 years, there's been no documented cases of hepatitis, HIV, COVID, many different viral infections, that you don't see cancer markers or cancer cells in the albumin. And we actually tested the albumin for microplastics and toxins, and we found none. So that's not to say that albumin isn't with some risks. It probably is, but the risks are very low. Now, also, if you have a patient that's very toxic and symptomatic and sick, getting the toxins out, the benefit of that outweighs the risk of the albumin. But the other option to albumin is somebody's plasma, somebody's actual plasma that you're going to give back to this person, which is a terrible idea to do in an outpatient setting from another person. Does have a lot of transfusion reactions. Happens.
You could be walking around with these toxins and maybe you're feeling okay. Like maybe you're not debilitatingly sick, but in 10 years, your toxin load is going to trigger a response in your how your cells replicate to where now you have a cancer that you wouldn't have had if we got those toxins under control. And that's like what we see with risks with toxins like herbicides and pesticides, right? Like we know that those are linked to cancer. So I really like your analogy of the oil change. It's like, this isn't just about, for some people it's amazing because it can help them when they're feeling sick right now. But it's also not just about that. It's about so that in 10 years, you're not dealing with a cancer diagnosis.
We see patients that come in because they feel well, they are well, and they're interested because of studies that were done that show that if you get plasma exchange done, your biomarkers of aging get better. And I'm okay with that. We have other patients come in because they've been sick and challenged by these chronic diseases like the chronic inflammatory syndrome, the mast cell activation, chronic Lyme, autoimmune issues, or just brain fog and different neurodegenerative issues that are coming on. But we also have patients that come in because they're concerned about their own DNA and their family history. Cancer really runs high in my family. Alzheimer really runs high in my family. Matter of fact, the majority of my siblings and parents and grandparents died by 65. Now I'm 64 now. So, I have a vested interest. So when I did plasma exchange, and I was the first patient that we did 3 years ago, my main interest was I still had quite a few toxins.
We have to have different levels of therapy to keep up with what's coming at us. And that's what I really appreciate about this therapy is that it's matching what we're dealing with in real time in life. So is it typically that somebody will need two treatments, or how many treatments can patients expect to need?
Sure. We've had a lot of experience treating a lot of different people for a lot of different things. And I can tell you this, the patients that are sicker need more. The patients that are toxic need more. The patients that are older need more. And the patients that are overweight or have a lot of mass, they typically need more because they can hold more of those toxins in their overall mass. So when we see people, there's a couple of factors that we're looking at. Number one, are you healthy? Are you moderate? Or are you sick? Because a lot of these patients coming to us have been chronically ill for 10 to 20 years with autoimmune issues, with fatigue, with cognitive issues. But we're also looking at how many toxins you have when you measure it compared to other people. So we can get an idea of what's called the toxic burden. How much of the overall system is being burdened by these toxins? But we also look at the immune system to see how well the immune system is responding. Is it being suppressed? Is it being confused? And finally, we look at people's neurocognitive function, because the brain is going to be one of the most sensitive organs in the body, and it does have issues with processing and memory due to toxins quicker than many of the other systems in our experience. So it's a combination of looking at what their history is and how, to what degree do we feel that this may be impacting their overall ability to have a significant health span. Yeah. What's really interesting is 3 years ago, we didn't know what a healthy adult levels of toxin would be. Nobody had that report. So we took 300 patients who were deemed healthy by their doctor, and the patient deemed themselves healthy, and we tested their toxin test. Out of 100 different toxins that we tested for, the average number of toxins in a healthy person that was above the optimum range was 13, with 5 in the upper and 8 in the moderate. That's high considering I'd done that 10 years ago and it was 8, and 10 years before that it was about 4. So we're certainly seeing more of these toxins in the higher range than normal than we did before. So it's just become very interesting when you start talking about people who are sick. It's like, how many toxins is too sick? Well, that depends on the person, because as I mentioned, a lot's about your genes, and you might have bad genes, in which case fewer toxins make you sick. In other cases, you might have very strong detox genes, but you can have a lot of toxins and they're not making you sick. But in that healthy group that we tested, what was interesting is, even though the average was 13, there's this group of women, they're in their 60s, they had low body weight, they used beauty products, and they were up in the 40s. And the reason for that is the body does like to put the toxins out of circulation. So it wants it out of the plasma and deep in the tissues so it can't find itself around, especially in the fat cells. Well, women who don't have a lot of body mass have nowhere to hide it. If you don't have enough proteins to bind them up in the plasma, now they become active agents instead of being agents that are sequestered away. So there's when you talk about the genetic code, I always say we don't test the genetic code, but on these women who were in this high, how much body fat you have, how much overall mass that your body has to be able to hide these toxins. So the people that are at most risk is you in about 3 decades. Well, thank you. I just want to say, every patient listening to this, every person listening to this, you can go to our website at mdlifespan.com. Under resources, you can download our new book called Avoiding Toxins. This is how you can make your environment toxic minimum, which is the first step everybody should do. It's written by 5 toxicologists and myself. It's very easy to read. It's very straightforward. It's very affordable. And this will be the most significant gift you've given to yourself, your family, and your health in the past 5 years. Secondarily, if you wish and you haven't had your toxin levels tested, you can also purchase that from our website. And that comes with one of our clinicians going over those results with you so we can help you interpret that. So as we mentioned before, prevention and testing are things that you always have to do. Matter of fact, I think that the toxin test within a short period of time is going to be as important as every other initial blood test that we do on patients, looking at their hemoglobin, their blood sugar, their cholesterol, and where you are with your toxins. It's just going to become part of the norm. If patients do want to go to the next step and learn more about plasma exchange, how it might affect them, how it might improve them, what protocols we have available to be dealing with these issues, right on the front page, you can schedule a call. You're going to meet with one of our healthcare providers. They're going to make sure you qualify for the plasma exchange. They're also going to talk about the protocols and the prices. And if everything works out well, then we'll set you up with a meeting with either myself or Dr. Simple, where we meet with you for an hour after we reviewed a very extensive questionnaire, any lab tests you had, so that we can talk to you more specifically and personally about how a customized TP program may work for you, or how you may not need it at all.
Wouldn't that be great to see where you're at, so that if things are starting to creep up, you can address them right away and not wait until symptoms are there? I hope that's where medicine's headed, right? Like that would be the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are listening right now, all those resources that Dr. Savage just listed are going to be in the show notes. So you can just go down there and click all those links and get the Toxin book, as well as if you want to schedule that consult to talk with his team. Thank you for joining us on the Made to Heal show.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Kasey. It's been just wonderful. Anytime.